There's a question here. I recently became a Muslim. Question from a sister, this is. I recently became a Muslim and I started wearing the niqab. But my father does not want anything to do with me. What should I do? I tried to give him da'wah, but he won't listen. Should I continue talking to him or just allow Allah to guide him? As for you recently becoming a Muslim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve you upon the sunnah, salafiyyah, upon ibadah, and upon righteous actions continually up until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you to depart from this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve you upon that. As for you stating that you wear a niqab, it's unclear to me. My father does not want anything to do with me. If he does not want anything to do with you due to the wearing of the niqab, then the most correct opinion of the scholars, from them Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, is, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, is that you are not obligated to wear the niqab. Rather, as Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah used to mention, that if the father commands his daughter to remove the niqab, then she is obligated to remove the niqab. The reason for that being, obviously, is because the Shaykh rahimahullah used to hold that the niqab was recommended and not an obligation, which is the position of the Jamhur of Ahlul Ilm. If not, to be honest with you, even greater than that. That it is something which is the position of the majority of the scholars of Islam, that they did not hold the niqab to be an obligation upon the woman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated. The vast majority of the scholars used to hold, and they held, and from the four madhabs and other than them, that the niqab was something which was recommended and not an obligation. So therefore Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah explains the principle that is guiding this affair. And that is that since the niqab is not an obligation, but rather a recommendation for the sister who wears the niqab, no doubt inshallah she is rewarded, because she has done something that pleases her Lord. The wearing the niqab is something recommended. I do not say it is mubah. Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah did not say it is mubah. It is not something that is merely allowed, but rather he mentioned it is something that is recommended and better. However, it is not an obligation. So therefore, the obligation here is obligation to the father. Since if the father commands his children with something, they are obligated to obey him unless it contradicts something that Allah has commanded you with. For indeed there is no obedience to the creation in disobedience to Allah, as the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated. So therefore, if your father commands you with something, you must obey him, unless it contradicts the obedience to Allah. If it contradicts the obedience to Allah, then Allah is obeyed and the creation is disobeyed. In this regard, the niqab is not obligatory. Is the obedience to the father obligatory? Yes. So what takes precedence? Recommendation or obligation? I'm asking you, ikhwan. Obligation. So since the obligation is paramount here, the obligation takes precedence, as Allah has obligated us to obey our parents. So we obey the father when the father says to his daughter, remove the niqab. Or the husband says to his wife, remove the niqab. And she removes the niqab by way of obedience to her husband or obedience to her father. So if that will remove some of the difficulties upon your sister, then remove the niqab. Obviously, if you remove the niqab, and in this situation I hold it is obligatory upon you to remove the niqab if your father commands you to do so, or your husband commands you to do so, then you are not allowed to wear makeup. You are not allowed to wear any lipstick or any eyeshadow or anything that beautifies your face. You're not allowed to wear that. So you're not allowed to beautify your face or to put anything upon your face that will make your face beautiful. Rather plain, washed, clean face, but no makeup or anything of that nature upon you. So that's the first issue. With regard to, I tried to give him da'wah, but he won't listen. Then, some of us, we fall short in this regard. Some of us think that da'wah is just a matter of talking. I just talk him and sometimes talk the man to death. Let him breathe, ikhwan. Sometimes, you have to, these are your parents. Sometimes, like you hear that statement, are you trying to teach your granny how to suck eggs? Are you trying to teach us something? So sometimes the parents, they find it hard because of the fact that they remember you when you were that big. And that's how they remember you as. Like my mother tells me now, I remember you when you were that big. And that's what she says, I remember you when you were that big. Alright? Now that's how mothers and fathers, they think of their children. They think of them as my little baby, my little child. So even though you may be 6'4" and a beard down to your chest, and 16 stones, she still remembers you as my little baby. So when you suffer, even at this huge height of yours and age of yours, she cries for you. And your father, he pains for you. Why? Because to you, you are his child. You are his child, or you are her child. So they feel that. So when you talk to them, you have to understand that first and foremost, you are talking to individuals who remember you. And they used to change your nappies. And they used to wash you. And they used to feed you when you couldn't feed yourself. So have some adab when you talk to them. Have some manners when you talk to them. Don't talk down to them. Don't patronize them. I know the deen and you don't know anything, so I'm going to talk down to you. Don't talk to them like that. Sometimes just the manners of an individual is sufficient. That you were a person before you started praying or before you started practicing. That you never cared about them. You never visited them. Maybe you argued with them. Now you've started practicing. That you are at their whim and their desire. When they need you, you're there. When they need to go to the doctors, you're there. When they need to go shopping, you're there. When they need you, you're there. That without even asking, you bring shopping home to them. Without even asking, you sit down on the floor besides them. They're on this couch, you're on the floor, and you start massaging their feet. This is the child with regard to his parents. Before you started practicing, you used to open a door and walk in before not even caring that your father's walking slowly behind you. Now you open the door and you let your father in first, or you let your mother in first. You open the door when your mother's coming out to get into the car, you rush out the driver's seat, you go to her side, open the door, put her into the seat, make sure she has her seatbelt on, then close the door. Sometimes my brothers and sisters, when they see this type of behavior from you, they might say to you, does your religion teach you that? Is that what Islam teaches? You say, yes, Islam teaches us ihtiram and manners towards our parents. So don't say, my sister, I gave him dawah, but he won't listen. Sometimes you have to continue, be persistent. Sometimes, like a brother said to me, he said, my mother wasn't taking dawah, so what I'd do, she was Urdu speaking. So what I used to do was, I used to leave CDs or tapes in convenient places around the house. Or leaflets in convenient places around the house, like on the kitchen surface or by her bed. So she used to pick them up and read them and put them down. So over time, she began to understand that I'm trying to give her dawah indirectly. Okay, you won't take it from me. Here's the ayat from the book of Allah. Hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Right? Not that I'm comparing your parents to any cats. But there's meaning that there's more than one way to do something. So there are many means that you can use. Maybe my father, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him and give him good health. My father is over 80 years old. Some of the brothers in the masjid, they say to my father doesn't have much knowledge, but he has love for the sunnah. So some of the brothers, younger brothers, will say to my father, uncle, will you come to my house and give dawah to my father? And my father, the most he'll do is sit with them and tell them, kitab sunnah, kitab sunnah, kitab sunnah. I used to be like you. Kitab sunnah, kitab sunnah. Right? 80-year-old man, maybe when he speaks to their parents, their children to him. 50 years old, my eldest brother is 57 years or 55 years old. My older brother. So some of those people who are now maybe the age of your parents are like my older brother, like the son of my father. So when you give dawah, sometimes it's better that you may bring someone from the outside and say, Father, do you mind if I bring some guests home? He says, yeah, and your father thinks, khalas, he's going to bring some 22-year-old nutcases, just like you, to the house. And you walk in with a 70-year-old man. And now your father feels obligated. I must sit with this man. How can I be sitting in the other room when there's a 70-year-old man in my house? So you'll sit with him. Sometimes you have to give dawah in different ways, ya ikhwan. Be patient, good manners, good etiquette, good behavior. Not trying to be too harsh with your parents, not trying to feed them too much that they're not ready to accept. So should I continue? Of course you should continue. Continue, my sister, giving him da'wah. Continue with your good treatment. Give him gifts. Show him that you've changed in a better way, in a more positive way. You are a better person, so that he may be attracted towards Islam. Wallahu a'lam. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you to Islam.